Hi everyone, welcome to the Money Wisdom Podcast, Providend's very own podcast show that is now into its second season. Over the past episodes, I had the privilege of interviewing people from all walks of life on their views on the value of advice. Today, I'm very happy to be able to interview, I want to say our special guest, but Seth is our colleague. So I'm just going to say we're very happy to be able to interview Seth, who runs his own YouTube channel called Sethisfy, and like I said, he is Providend's very own client advisor. So Seth, welcome to the Money Wisdom Podcast.
Hi Chris, I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, now it's my turn to interview you.
Okay, yeah.
It's a bit weird because we're in the same room, just sitting on the opposite side of the chair. So maybe just to start us off, you have a YouTube channel. Maybe you can tell us what made you actually start the YouTube channel. When did you actually start it?
The YouTube channel actually was an extension of my website. Yeah, so I started my website because I wanted to write about my views, including politics and my daily life.
Do you still write? No. Predator, right? So now YouTube easier.
No, I still do write on my website.
Okay.
And I still make YouTube videos as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's just that I stopped all the politics and the non-finance things. Because it was the finance things that sort of gained traffic. Yeah, I think people would rather read about finance stuff rather than how my day went and my views on politics.
But really, you wrote about politics.
I wanted to
such
write
a dangerous
about
topic to write.
Yeah, correct. So luckily I managed to pivot to finance before anything too controversial came up.
Yeah, so just out of curiosity, between politics and finance, right, which one got you more views?
I didn't really write much on politics. I think I have a grand total of maybe 2 pieces.
Okay.
Yeah, so the finance things were more popular.
Okay.
Yeah, so I just did all purely finance.
So just, articles, but you didn't do any YouTube at all on politics?
No YouTube on politics. Recently I did something with a friend. Yeah, but politics? It was just talking about the presidential elections. But it was nothing serious.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, besides just starting something on, I know you said that you started with politics and then you move on to finance, but were there other reasons why you wanted to run finance, personal finance, besides sharing your own views?
I think I have always been very interested in the area. Yeah, so for myself, I'm always trying to find out what's the best credit card, what's the best insurance policy, how to invest my money. So I think it was a natural extension to just write about it, to make content about it, to share my views.
Okay. Yeah. You did this after your stint in the industry, right? Not during, right?
Yeah. Actually, during my time in the industry, I actually had a website as well. Yeah, so I was writing quite frequently there. I also had a little bit of readership at that time.
Okay.
Yeah, but then after that, I left the industry for a while.
Okay.
Yeah, then I somehow was still interested in the area, and that's why I started my website and YouTube.
So for those of us who do not know, Seth actually joined the industry first as an insurance advisor, and then subsequently he joined the financial advisory to provide independent financial advice. Right before he left, if you're interested to find out why he left, I shan't say it here. Maybe you can check out his website, because that's also the same reason how I found Seth, and then managed to persuade him back to the industry to join Providend. Okay, so today's interview is really, or today's podcast is really about the value of advice. And like I said, I had an opportunity to speak to different people, all walks of life. I've spoken to the work salaryman. I've spoken to the managing partner of the legal firm that we work with about the value of advice. So you'll be interested to hear from you, not so much from a client advisor perspective, right? Maybe more as either a YouTuber or even before you join us. I'm sure you have certain views about money. So it'd be good to talk about your views about money. So I'm going to start by asking you to share some of the money beliefs that you grew up with.
I think I've always been a saver. I'm not really sure why that's the case, but I think if I look back at my growing up years, actually I grew up in a pretty comfortable middle class family. Yeah, and I get like new Lego sets every year when I did well during exams, birthday, those sort of things. Yeah, and then there was one time, I think the first camera phone came out.
Oh.
And I really wanted it. And my parents actually had to sit me down and say, son, we're actually not doing as well now. Because there was a health event in the family. Yeah, so they had to sit me down and say, okay, we're not as fortunate as before. We can't afford this. So they told me that. And I guess it really stuck with me because I think after that, I became very frugal. Yeah, I just...
How old were you then? Do you remember?
Probably 17, 18.
Oh, so that's like JC period.
Yeah.
And are you the oldest amongst your siblings?
I'm the younger of two kids.
Okay. The youngest.
The younger one, yeah. So I have an elder sister.
Okay. So that was quite mature of you at the age of 18 when your parents sat you down and just simply tell you that things are not so rosy now. And then suddenly that changed and then you became more frugal.
Yeah, I guess because in the past I didn't really have to worry about money. And then when they sat me down to say that, I thought, okay, seems like things are pretty serious for them to have to tell me that. And yeah, I think that probably started it. And of course, after that, I went on to NS and all. Money wasn't... There wasn't a lot of money, right? So I had to be very frugal. And then also my experience working as an IFA also, because my income wasn't very good at that time. So I also had to watch my purse strings quite a bit. So I think I grew up with this, mindset of scarcity. Yeah. Yeah. Even though my young childhood years, I didn't really lack for anything.
Okay.
But after that, I think I began to feel like money is very hard to come by.
Okay, so that you mentioned that happened after around 18 years old, and then suddenly there's this switch. Did your parents do anything different at all to make you feel that money is hard to come by?
I think it was quite obvious because when I was much younger, we used to stay in a much bigger place.
Okay.
We had 2 cars, 2 maids, that kind of thing.
Okay.
And then subsequently, we just had 1 car. We reduced, and then we had no more maid.
Okay.
And then we downsized a little bit. We went to rent instead.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think even when I was very young, I didn't really have to think much about money, but I think it was quite apparent that it's a bit different now. Yeah, and so I thought, okay, maybe I should change my behavior as well at that time. Yeah. So
it was more, I can see that it was more experiential, that, it's not like your parents sat you down and say, okay, stop spending on this, stop spending on that, I'm sure they still provided for you all those basic necessities. It's just that you notice a change of financial situation back at home. So all these things, right? You mentioned scarcity, but are there other money values that, as a result of that experience, today you have these money values?
From my growing up years?
Yep. From 18, because obviously that seems to be like the point of departure. Before that, you didn't have to worry so much. Whatever you wanted, you probably could have all of these things. And then suddenly, things change, right?
Yeah.
So how did that shape? You mentioned the scarcity mindset. Maybe you can unpack that a bit more. But also, were there other things about your money values that suddenly you somehow have them because of this change?
I think after that, the second event would be because I didn't go to uni, right? So I had a very, it wasn't very clear what my career would be like in future. So I sort of prepared to earn quite little compared to my peers.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that also contributed to my mindset of, okay, I have to save every dollar that I can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting to talk about you didn't go uni because I know when we first met, we did that interview, and then just before you left, you said, I don't know whether you remember, but you told me there's something I need to tell you, and you said you didn't go to university, right? And the response I give you was like, okay, so what, but it's interesting to share, actually, why didn't you go to the university? You went to good school. You actually you obviously did well in primary school. You went to a pretty branded, good secondary school. You went to a top junior college. And then that's it. You decided to stop there. So maybe it's good to share what happened. Actually, why didn't you decide to pursue university?
My grades in junior college were quite bad. And I think after my O levels, I was kind of burnt out for some reason, for some strange reason. I just decided that academics were not my thing. I couldn't see the link between what I was studying versus what I'll be doing in future. Yeah, so when I joined the junior college, I actually thought, okay, what is the most relevant thing I would do in future? And I thought, okay, let's take biochemistry because that can lead to being a doctor, right? To study medicine.
In JC.
Yeah, in JC.
You mean they have this kind of topic?
Bio and chem.
Oh, I see. Okay, got it.
And I didn't take bio in secondary school, but to me that was the clearest link I could make between my academics and what I'll do in future. So I thought, okay, I'll be a doctor. And given my school circumstances, everybody there was either gunning to be a doctor or lawyer, those sort of things. Yeah, so I thought, okay, I'll study bio and chem, so I can I can study medicine in future and be a doctor. Oh, and it was not for me.
Okay.
It was such a difficult.
Both topics were not for you.
Yeah, both topics were very bad. So it was very, very demanding academically, and I just decided, okay, somehow at a grand age of 18, I decided, okay, nothing is going to happen if I just let go of my studies now. Everything will sort itself out. I don't know why I had such a confidence at that time. Yeah, so I just didn't study at all, and I got triple D my A levels. Yeah, so with that kind of results, I can't get to university.
So I'm just trying to piece the two events together, right? So 18 was quite a tough year for you at the age of 18 years old. That year was pretty tough, right? Because you decided to give up on your studies, and then that event of your parents sitting you down, telling you that things at home not as good as before. Which one happened first?
I think the parents sitting me down happened before that. Yeah.
Do you think that affected you in terms of your desire to study, or you were pretty affected by it, and then I'm so tired about studying, I'm tired about life at 18 years old, and you decided to give up everything?
No, I don't think they were related. At that time, I just was, I was very sick of studying. Yeah, so I just let go. Yeah.
Okay, so event one, you suddenly realized that things at home not so good. That changed your mindset about money. And then you mentioned event two was that, you decide to give up on study, and you realize that, okay, I'm not going to go on a normal track. I now need to find ways to make money. Is that, or are these the reason why you had this scarcity mentality that, okay, always not enough, I need to work hard because money is not easy to come by? Are they in a way?
Yeah, in a way, I think after I left JC without a degree, without a uni admission, and then I finished my NS, to me at that time was, okay, I have no means of making money now. So that I think also contributed to the mindset of I'll never have enough.
Okay. Yeah. So if I were to sum it up, right, if I were to ask you to articulate, what would you say would be your money values today? Your values towards money. How do you see money today?
I still see it as a resource to be managed wisely, right? And every dollar that I put aside now will actually contribute to having more resources in future. Yeah, so I believe in delaying gratification. Yeah, so I'm someone who's I think still quite frugal, perhaps excessively sometimes. Yeah, and even things like meals, I still try to limit myself to $5-6. Yeah,
a day or a meal.
Per meal.
Okay.
Yeah. And anything around $10 and up, to me, that's like luxury. I try not to spend that much on food. And I would never take taxi if the bus and MRT is still running.
Okay. Unless you are late for something.
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
And even though the cost actually relative to what I'm earning now actually is not that high anymore. But to me, it's just, I think, out of habit. To me, I just cannot justify spending $20-$30 to save me about 20-30 minutes. Yeah. I'd rather take the train, I'd rather take the bus and all.
And then after NS, you realized that you didn't have that certificate.
Yeah.
You had a pretty bad A-level certificate.
Correct.
Unlike a lot of young people, they have a degree. You didn't have that. So what did you do next to earn money?
So I actually responded to a part-time job offer of doing telemarketing, because telemarketing actually can earn quite a little bit per hour. So I responded to the advertisement. It turned out to be a insurance agency who realized that I'm someone who can speak relatively okay. So I was 2 days into the job, and the manager tried to recruit me.
Oh, okay. That was how you started.
Yeah, correct. In the insurance line.
Okay. And I know you also gave tuition you still give, but you gave a lot more tuition last time. When did that start?
That was 2015. So that was a few years after I started my insurance career.
Concurrent?
No, after that. Because my first year in the insurance industry, I was actually making quite okay income for someone without a degree. Yeah. I think my top month, I actually made 5 digits. That was, I think, barely half a year into the career.
Okay.
And at the time, 21 years old, without a degree, earning that much.
Not bad,
I felt like top of the world kind of feeling. Yeah, but subsequently, I left and I joined the IFA because I realized that whatever I was selling at that time, the commission was very, very good. But I realized they weren't actually very good for the clients.
Okay.
Yeah, so I felt very bad about it. And then I went on this journey of discovering other better solutions out there. So I ended up in an IFA. And it turns out that when you recommend the very good solutions to your clients, you actually earn much less commission than before. Yeah, so the tuition was to supplement my income during my IFA days. Yeah, during my IFA days, I was averaging maybe 1,000 per month.
Okay.
Yeah, in commission.
So I'm again trying to put that together, right? Because you didn't have a piece of paper. Finding a job would be tough. And then suddenly you chance upon this job, being an insurance advisor, and you were doing pretty well. Without a degree, people would have hung on to that job, right? Because it's making you quite a bit of money, and money not enough. And you probably wouldn't be able to find another job that gives you $5,000 a month at that point in time without a degree. And then here you are, you quit because of your noble aspiration of wanting to do the right thing. So is that one of your money values as well?
I think it's sort of linked to the feeling I got in JC, where I thought, okay, everything will sort itself out. Yeah, I just need to do what I feel is right, and then everything will sort itself out in the future. So that was me being quite naive again, I think.
Okay.
So I discovered, actually it's quite tough to make money when you are trying to prioritize clients' interests first.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And then subsequently you went to do, of course, this YouTube thing. It brought you some income. Yeah. So that's why you have multiple streams of income.
Yeah.
Right? Do you think that came accidentally, or it was quite intentional that, okay, I learned that paper, I need to work hard, and it would be good if I have multiple streams of income?
I think the tuition thing was out of necessity. Because when I'm earning 1,000 per month, it was really very difficult for me to get by. Although I think I made it work somehow, right? Because 1,000 per month, I actually managed to budget and stay within that budget for quite some time. But then some tuition assignments came along. My friend didn't want to teach anymore, so he passed it to me. So I took it, and then I realized this gave me regular income that supplements my $1,000 per month income from being an IFA. Then after that, each additional student got me more income, and therefore I just did the natural thing and just continued to teach more and more. Yeah, and eventually tuition became the main income source. Yeah, and after that, it became my main thing for a few years. Yeah, the YouTube and website came about because I think I was always interested in personal finance.
Okay.
So leaving that space made me didn't make me feel any less for that area. So I eventually started it as a hobby.
Okay, not with the intention of making lots of advertising
No,
dollars.
My thought was if it could earn maybe $50 per month to pay off my handphone bill, that's excellent already.
Okay.
Yeah, but it went on to make a lot more money than I expected. So now it became a business on its own.
Yeah, so it seems like, okay, your turning point was 18. Suddenly you realize that things weren't as good, and you have that what you describe as that mindset of scarcity. I won't call it a mindset of scarcity. Rather, I would say that you realize that money is not easy to come by, and therefore you need to work very hard. But at the same time, you want to do the right things and make money correctly. And even when things became much better because you have different sources of income and your tuition business or that stint is actually making you a lot of money, you still chose to spend below your means because somehow it has become a habit. Plus that mindset of, money is not easy to come by still remains. That's why you are still very frugal. You're still very prudent in your spending. Would I be right to say that? Because that seems to describe your views, your money values.
Yeah, correct. I think over the years, I programmed myself into associating spending with pain. And
spending with pain.
Yeah. I think most people, when they are down, they will go on retail therapy, right? They will buy something to cheer themselves up. But for me, if I have to, whenever I spend money, I actually feel pain rather than pleasure. And when I find a good deal or I save money and I didn't have to spend a certain amount, I actually feel good about it. So that makes saving more natural to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, is it still like that today where when you spend, you actually feel painful?
Yes, actually. So whenever I have to buy something, actually I think multiple times whether to buy something or not. And when I realize that, okay, I do have to buy it, I will have to go and compare, go and see where I can get the best deal. And it's just a force of habit that I cannot change.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the YouTube is an expression of who you are because you like to compare things.
Yeah, correct. So when I do have to spend, I need to compare where gives me the cheapest deal. And this kind of content actually resonate with quite a lot of people as well. And then when I spend, what's the best credit card to get me the best rewards? Yeah, so that's whatever I share on my YouTube and website is actually what I personally practice also.
Okay. So, I mean, listening to what you have shared so far, I mean, because my next question that I prepped for you is really about, are you confident about the way you manage your money? But, I mean, from what you have shared, the answer will be yes, right? I think you're pretty confident in the way you are managing your money now.
I think on the spending side of things, I'm quite okay with. So I stopped tracking my expenses. For I think almost 10 years of my life, I track every single dollar I spend.
Okay.
Yeah, but now I don't do that anymore. I think now my issue is actually I'm quite careless with the management of money actually.
Okay, can you elaborate that a bit for us?
Yeah, so I realized that sometimes because I think my money life has become a little bit more cluttered because now I have multiple income sources. I also have multiple areas where I'm spending money on. For example, business costs, right? Like there are some costs that I have to pay for on my tuition business side of things. And sometimes I have my own personal expenses. Sometimes I help friends to pay for things because I want to earn the card reward. Yeah, and then I realized that sometimes I don't claim back the amounts that I'm owed.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's me being very tardy. So it's kind of like I'm very careful on what I spend on. But when I actually do make certain payments and I'm supposed to chase people back for payment, I sometimes just let it go. Sometimes subconsciously. Sometimes the debt is too old already and I'm just like, it's too weird and awkward.
But that's not a matter of confidence, right? Yeah. It's probably that you are so busy, you have to look after so many things, and then you just forget. Because it's not about being lack of confidence, right?
It is more like I think, I know this issue of mine, so I'm taking steps to rectify it as well. Okay. To have a better system and all. Because I'm generally quite, how do I put it? Not that systematic when it comes to managing my stuff. Yeah. I have a broad picture of where things are, but I don't have a specific, how to say, I don't write down, which I should be doing, right? Where things are. So I'm trying to keep better records of my own finances as well.
Yeah, but I really feel that is not your inability. It is not because you're not confident. It's just that you need to be a bit more diligent in keeping your finances properly, right? I mean, just to clarify for those of us who are listening right now, I mean, Seth is employed staff of Providend. He's paid a salary because otherwise we think that he's back to his old days, he's making commissions, so he has got 3 sources of income. He's doing tuition. He's making money from his YouTube channel, and then we are paying commission. So actually, he's a full-time staff of Providend, but we allow him to still do his tuition. He's not doing that much now, and of course, YouTube, like he said, is really a hobby, and if he makes money from it, and that's great, lah. Okay, so based on what you have shared, it is really about being more organized. But have you ever made poor money decisions? And maybe if you have, share some of them.
Yeah, I think I definitely have. Even
because you're so careful, so I've got to ask, right?
Right.
Have you made mistakes before?
Yeah, I think even the best of us, we make mistakes from time to time. So I'm clearly far from the best of us. Yeah, I think the most recent example I can think of would be GameStop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, at that time, I'm someone who's actually relatively conservative in my own investments. But when GameStop came about, I felt this sense of FOMO, right? Yeah, fear of missing out. And yeah, everybody is saying, okay, in theory, right, what's going to happen is going to just keep going up. So I just bought a little bit just to
satisfy that FOMO.
Yeah. And then within the hour, not even an hour, I think within 35 minutes, it came crashing down. Yeah, so at that time, I quickly cut loss. I think, people will say paper hands, right? Paper hands meaning you don't hold the stock. Yeah, but I'm glad I did it. I still made a loss around, I think, $200 within half an hour.
Okay.
Relatively small amount, but
small
I think it was still a good reminder that, some things you shouldn't just get caught up in with the hype. Yeah. And
any other poor decisions beside this one?
I think it will be poor decision.
Any poor spending decisions, you spend without thinking twice, and then after you bought something, then straight away you regretted it. Okay, like when we went to Sydney and then you went to Apple Store and you bought quite a few things home.
Yeah, I think most of my expenses are calculated. Yeah, and I bought stuff from Apple in Sydney because it's cheaper there. Then there's tax rebate, and at that time that product was not available in Singapore yet. Yeah, so I think my circumstances are a little bit stranger in the sense that sometimes if I were to say about poor decision, it would be not spending money when actually money needs to be spent.
Right.
Yeah. Sometimes I think I'm guilty of that more often than buying something that I regret. Yes.
So for someone who is pretty diligent in spending, you have got good money values before you joined Providend, right? And when you have to make difficult decisions, do you have anyone that you speak to, someone that you trust, that you bounce ideas with, especially when it comes to investing and all that? Do you have anyone?
Before Providend?
Before Providend.
Before Providend would be my ex-colleague. I have an ex-colleague from my previous IFA.
Okay.
Yeah, but aside from him, I think there are actually quite few people that I know of previously that share my interest in personal finance. I guess that's also one of the reasons why I started my online stuff.
Okay, and that particular ex-colleague also left or still around?
He's still around.
Oh, still around. Okay. So, now I'm going to ask you a question which might be difficult now because, you have been doing this with us for the last 1 year. But what would you consider to be good advice?
Right. Good advice, I think, would be good and sincere, if I were you kind of advice. Right. So by that, I mean, if you put yourself in someone's shoes and then you think of yourself as the person and do things that would benefit yourself the most. Yeah. So you give advice as if you are the person and sincerely you believe that is the best course of action. So I think that to me is good advice.
So today people pay you a fee for advice because that's how we work, right? Our clients pay us for advice. But before you being part of us, okay, I know it's hard to imagine that, but would you really pay for advice? Good advice. Would you do that?
Are we just talking about financial advice?
Yeah, financial advice.
Just financial advice. I think there's always this mental block when it comes to paying a fee for financial advice, because the norm is you don't pay for advice, right? In fact, the advisor or the agent sometimes treat you to coffee or meal. Yeah, so I think there's always this mental block when it comes to paying for advice. Yeah, so honestly, before joining Providend, I would say that I would be willing, but only if the cost is relatively low.
Okay. What is low?
Few $100s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you will be willing to pay, but the cost must be just a few $100s. Low enough.
Correct. And I think it also has to be whether, it has to depend on whether or not I can see value coming out from that transaction.
Okay, so again, it's not the cost, it's also the value.
Correct.
You won't even pay $50 if there is no value.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, now, it's interesting, right? Because when you were with the IFA, you're obviously doing very badly.
Yeah.
Because you were giving good advice.
Yeah.
So it's like pretty ironical, because actually you were giving good advice, and you should be paid for that good advice, and you were paid badly, and so you quit. Yeah, but you see the dichotomy, because now I'm asking, like, would you actually pay for advice? And you say, well, I will pay, but only if it's not too high, a few $100, and give good advice.
Yeah. So at that time, actually, I tried to charge fees also. I was charging about, I think towards the end of my career there, about $100 for initial consult. Yeah. Then thereafter, of course, any product transacted will be commission based. But also, I think that fee was meant more to sieve out the not so sincere clients. Yeah. Then later on, I tried to up it to $250, and that was when there was a hard stop to, I think, hard objection. Clients start to say no. $100 still was okay.
Okay.
Yeah. But I guess the irony at that time was, as you mentioned, I was not doing well in the commission model. And personally, when I pay for advice, honestly, I would say that there is a mental block, right? Yeah, because when the norm is commissions, you wouldn't really think of paying a fee. Yeah. But if you are asking, will I pay a fee for doctor, for lawyer? Yeah, I would have, because the norm is everybody pays their lawyer, an upfront fee. Yeah. So I think, that's my answer.
So now that you have been with us for about a year, right? Has that mindset changed? That people should, I'm not asking about you now, right? But I'm asking, like, do you think people should pay for good advice?
I think now that I know how it works, right? Definitely I would say that people should pay for advice, because the cost associated with financial advice, it can be a direct cost. It can also be an indirect cost. Yeah. So I think you would rather know the direct cost upfront and pay for it, rather than to incur a lot of indirect costs that you may not know, right? But it's still coming out from you. Yeah. So I think knowing what I know now, I would say that people should pay, even though it may be something that feels difficult, feels like it's different from the norm. Yeah, but if they know truly how much value they can get, they will realize that it's better to pay the fee.
So I guess what you're saying is that, there is no free lunch. Everybody needs money, right, to survive. And so when we work, we should earn an income. That's only fair. So when you are taking financial advice, you are paying anyway. If you are taking advice from a commission-based person, you are paying. You are paying in the form of a commission. You're paying anyway, right? And in fact, it is very important to know that you are actually paying, not the insurance companies or not the product providers, right? You are actually paying, because using the insurance product as an example, if you surrender your product that you bought in the first few years, you get nothing back, because actually what you paid in terms of premiums have gone to pay the advisor. So you are actually paying. When you are paying a fee for advice, it's more transparent, because you are paying out from your pocket that fee. So you are paying anyway. The question really is whether it is through commission or whether it is through a fee. are you getting value out from it?
Yeah.
Right?
Correct.
Because if there is no value, it doesn't matter if the fees are very, very low. It's not worth paying, right? So how would you then define the value of advice? What would you deem as value of advice?
Wow.
If I may, change the question a bit. How would you determine if you are taking advice, right? If the advice is adding value to you?
How to determine? Oh, okay. I think I have to do my own research on the subject.
Okay, are you speaking as an advisor or are you speaking as a consumer?
Consumer.
Okay, so if you're a consumer today,
Yeah.
and I want to give you advice,
Correct.
the first thing you will do is that you will do research.
Yes,
okay.
correct.
What would you research on?
Yeah, I think I will first research on what is the best practices.
Okay.
Right. I think if you think of financial advice, there are actually a lot of online resources these days. I mean, apart from my website and YouTube, there are a lot of forums discussing these issues, right? Because financial advice is something that I think everybody needs. And because of that, it's relevant to a lot of people's lives. And there's a lot of discussion online, and there's a lot of good material written online. So I think by researching more, reading more of these articles, you can start to form your own opinion on whether or not the advice given to you is good advice or not. It does not need, you don't need to research 100% of the topic. Right? You just need to know enough to have a little gauge on whether or not the person telling you the advice given to you is something that's reasonable or not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess what you're saying is that, today with internet and with information so easily accessible, I guess the advice that is given to you by the advisor is only valuable if it is over and above what you would have gotten from the internet. Right? Because if an advisor is telling you the same thing that you can get from the internet, and all he does for you is a transaction, then where's the value of advice? Because actually you know as much as the advisor, or maybe you know even more because you can do all this research on your own, right? So the advisor is not really an advisor. The advisor is a transaction person.
I think there are two parts to it. One is knowing the theory. The other is actually executing the plan. Because if I were to think of another service as an analogy, let's say fitness trainers, actually most of the gym equipment, most of the techniques and all, one can research online and just practice ourselves. Right? We don't need a gym trainer, theoretically speaking. But still, there's value in hiring a fitness trainer because of, you can have someone to tell you exactly how your form is, right? Someone to motivate you, someone to keep you accountable for your own fitness regime and things like that. So one, they give you the proper theory, which you can research on your own. But two, they also help you execute your plan. Yeah.
Yeah, I realized that because I used to use a trainer, and I had a trainer for 2 years. So, I know all the weights machine. I know theoretically how to use those weights machine. But one of the reasons why I engaged a trainer was because I wanted to make sure that I'm doing it right. Because if I don't do it right, even though I know it in my head, but when I execute it, I don't do it right, there's a high chance I will injure myself. Yeah. If I injure myself, and that's it. I can't exercise for months, right? So I had that trainer for about 2 years. He was a very good trainer. And then guess what? I stopped. And then I stopped because, firstly, it's a pretty expensive thing. And then I thought, okay, I've been learning from him for 2 years. So now I know how to do it. So I went to the gym some weeks back, and I did that. I did some exercise on that particular machine, and guess what? I was doing it wrong. I didn't even realize I was doing it wrong. And then there was this trainer that walked past me. He's not even my trainer, right? So he walked past me, and then he saw me doing it wrong, and I said, can I just help you correct? So he actually corrected me for free. Then I realized that, sometimes even after you learn it, you might still not be able to execute it properly because it's just not your profession. I don't do it every day, right? I can still make mistakes. So I think that's a good analogy. But just to add on the value advice part, at Providend, we always talk about the value advice, and we often get clients that come to us and say, the things that you guys preach, I read it, and everybody say the same thing, right? So why should I pay you a fee? So I always reduce it to the three, what I call the secret sources, that what we do that add values to client, right? So firstly, and you do it on a daily basis, is your daily conversations with your clients, right? Because you are able to carry out very deep conversations with your clients to uncover needs that they may not even realize. And in a way, I demonstrated it to all of us here in the first few questions I asked you, right? Because I was trying to really find out your life journey. What makes Seth who he is today? And you shared authentically about your family situation, how you view your money. So today, if I'm your advisor, I will take that very seriously, because I know you have this mindset of money is very hard to come by. So you're generally conservative, So that's the first value advice that we add, because it's very hard to ask ourselves those kind of questions, right? So that's one value. The second for us, as you know, is our philosophies, right? We have our wealth planning philosophy, we have our insurance philosophy, we have got our investment philosophy. And people often ask wow, why are you so philosophical? Okay, and the reason is because our philosophy is actually an expression of all the things that we have learned over the last 2 decades. We know what works, what don't work. And so we reduce it to our philosophy as guiding principles when we plan for clients. And that comes from experience. And experience is valuable, especially the experience that comes from crisis that we have gone through. And thirdly, of course, is the robust analysis that we do. As a layman on their own, as much as we try, but again, it's not something that you do on a daily basis. You might not have tools, and you may not have data that as a professional institution we subscribe to, right? So these are what I call the value advice. Because otherwise, if you're doing the same old, then the consumer actually, they don't need you. They can do everything on their own, because they can read everything on the internet. And last but not least, as an advisor, you provide that discipline for your clients to carry out the plan that's written, because it's one thing to have a plan, it's another thing to be able to execute it.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so any final words on this topic of value or advice? What would you say to someone who comes to you today and say, Seth, why should I pay you a fee for advice?
Even as a practitioner myself, sometimes I think having the theory itself is not enough, because even my own emotions can cloud my own judgment. So I always find it very useful to look for a second opinion from someone who's a domain expert, right? Even though that I know the theory, sometimes when markets go down, I'm supposed to invest more, but I'm scared to do so.
That's right.
Right, because you keep hearing about black swan events, you keep hearing the news go on. Yeah, so even myself, knowing the theory that in the long run markets will go up, when it comes to my own money, I feel fearful for putting it in. Yeah, so I find that there's always value in having someone as a sense check to reassure you, this is the theory, go ahead with it. And I think it applies to even things like fitness, a lot of areas in life. Yeah. Sometimes we know the theory, but we need someone to coach us along the way. Yeah, and then like you mentioned, if you have not asked me about what shape my money values, I think I wouldn't even think of asking myself, why is my habit like that? I'll just be thinking, how do I save my next dollar? Right? Without wondering why, where that came from.
Yeah, so I guess even the best athlete, they hire the best coach.
Yeah.
And they are the best because they hire a coach.
Correct.
So that is why I guess even if you are very good in investments or financial management, I feel that there is a need still to get someone like you mentioned to do the sense check. Well, thank you so much, Seth, for joining us for this Money Wisdom podcast interview. And I like to end with whatever. I mean, each time when Seth ends his YouTube, he always say, "Please like and subscribe." But for Money Wisdom podcast, I'll just say, if you have enjoyed what you have heard, we have got very good content. So please follow us, not just here on this podcast platform, but on our social media platform. And if you found this particular podcast interviews and many of our content to be valuable, please share it with your friends. So once again, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All analyses, views, or opinions from interviews, recommendations, and other information broadcasted, podcasted, or published herein are provided for general information purposes only. Information expressed does not take into account any specific situation, particular needs, or objectives, and should not be construed as specific advice or a recommendation. Information has been obtained from sources that are deemed to be reliable, but their accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed. Always consult with a qualified investment, legal, or tax professional before taking any action. Providend Limited does not accept any liability for any loss whatsoever arising from any use of the information broadcasted, podcasted, or published herein. All contents and information contained herein may not be copied or reproduced in whole or in part by any means without prior written consent of Providend Limited.